It's Friday! It's Friday! I'm trying not to yell and scare you, but I get pretty excited about a Friday. It's not a flower Friday. I will explain that coming up, though I'm always all about the flowers, as you can see on the canvas behind me. I love flowers. They make me happy. But unfortunately, we can't do a Flower Friday with a cameo from our dogs, Flower and Daisy, because they've been taken to their grandma's house. Yes, my husband and I are hitting the road for a very quick road trip this weekend. I will be back with you on Monday, so never fear. I don't want to interrupt your habits if you started hanging out with us every day on All In. But we have some friends, very long time friends of mine from my days living in Oklahoma, and they are moving. And so we have offered. They told us, no, 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 don't come visit while we're moving. But we decided that the best friends in life are the ones that help you move. I feel that way after all the times I've moved in my career. And so I'm happy to see them and happy to go back to Woodward, Oklahoma, where I spent several years much earlier in my career. And it'll be fun to be able to introduce the Hubs to some people that I've talked about for a long time, but he's not met. So quick road trip, 8 hours to Oklahoma. We'll spend Saturday, part of Sunday. We'll go to church with them. And then boom, right back to the great state of Texas to begin another work week. But I've got all kinds of adrenaline. This morning had to get up early. Now we can't feed Flower before she gets in the car because Flower gets car sick. I mean, she looks sick. It's weird. I can see it on her face when we get in the car. It's so funny too. I don't know if anybody has a dog that gets car sick. Our little mini Aussie Daisy, who you saw last week on camera. And if you didn't see her, go check out the video that's on YouTube and Instagram. But Daisy loves the car. And she's just like every other Australian Shepherd that we've ever had in our family, loves to ride in the car or the truck. And so she gets very excited when we talk about rides or going into the car. But Flower, she gets sick. And so when we moved and did the road trip from New Jersey to Texas, we got her some drugs from the vet. Apparently it's like doggy Dramamine, so it keeps them from getting nauseous and getting car sick. But for the most part, if it's just going to be an hour or an hour and a half in the car, I don't bother with the drugs because she doesn't like how she feels on the drugs either. So we don't feed her first thing in the morning. Now, sometimes it doesn't work. The last time I put her in the car, oh my gosh, she hadn't eaten anything except for a few pieces of grass out in the backyard when she went out first thing in the morning and still threw up in my bag. It was the best way to start a vacation. And so I got her into the vehicle, and what she does to cope with her feelings of nausea or just unrest is she crowds next to Daisy. Now she outweighs Daisy and is a much bigger dog than Daisy, probably 2 or 3 times, but Daisy is her support animal. Daisy makes her feel better. And so Daisy will be sitting up against the car door in the back seat or the truck door in the back seat, and Flower will smush up against her because that contact with her sister makes her feel better. And so poor Daisy, she's all smushed into a corner and she's looking at me like, Mom, help. But she's such a good sister. She allows Flower to crowd and sometimes even sit on her because that's the only way that Flower can get through the ride. So I did that this morning. I got a mile down the road, realized Princess Leia had a tire light that was on, had to come back, get the truck. I was stressing out, all the traffic, the school in the area. So yes, I'm happy to be back here in the studio, though my adrenaline is still pumping a bunch, and I am looking forward to the weekend. I hope you are as well. Not before we talk about a bunch of football and a couple of other stories that have found their way into my feeds or that are stories that I came across in my research. So, obviously, a lot of stories these days are shared on social media, some of them sports stories, some of them more human interest. And so, it's weird to say I do research on social media, but I do a lot of searching and reading with links that I find on social. And I had told you going back to Wednesday of this week that we were going to start a new feature. We haven't dressed it up yet. We don't have the bows, the ribbons, the bells, the whistles, but we will at some point package it. And I hope find a corporate partner who wants to be along for the ride, who wants to sponsor Find Your Feels, the stories that hit you in the heart, whether they give you some bittersweet emotions where there's part sadness, but there's also part joy, whether they enhance your perspective and maybe cause you to think about life a little bit differently. Maybe they remind you what's important. Maybe they make you laugh or they make you smile, whatever happens to be the case. Find Your Feels is a story of some sort that I come up with so that I can share it with you. And I hope that it gives you the same type of feelings that it does me. So I have another one for today. And this is one of those ones that might make you sad initially, but then the human reaction to the way people face adversity and challenges. And I've mentioned this before in the show. Sometimes life just flat out sucks. But when we as human beings choose to approach those really difficult circumstances with hope or with grace or with gratefulness, it feels like it really changes our perspective about whatever tough circumstance we're dealing with or going through at the time. And of course, there's pain, there's grief, there's loss, there's definitely feelings of discouragement and doubt and struggle. But I find, for me anyway, that hope and faith can help me to get through those things. And so this story that I'll share with you today on Find Your Feels really touched my heart in a variety of ways. So that's still to come on the show. Also, longtime NFL insider Rob Maaddi, who is with the Associated Press now. He is a Philadelphia guy. He spends time in Tampa. He travels for the NFL. He's starting his 27th season covering the league, and he's one of my favorite NFL insiders. He's agreed. Now, he's had some vacation, celebrating family occasions, but he's agreed to come on the show today. And this, again, another situation where I feel very validated and grateful for contacts in the business who will come on the show and grace us with their presence. So we've got Rob in our second hour. We had the start to preseason week number 2 last night, and there was definitely a welcome to the NFL moment for Fernando Mendoza. So we'll talk about that as well. And also, the head coach of the Raiders hasn't yet made up his mind when it comes to the appropriate path forward for his quarterbacks. So Kirk Cousins was named QB1, but there's still a healthy competition going on. And it takes some strong personalities to be able to navigate a challenge like this, a battle like this, but these guys are conditioned for it. And obviously, when you're fighting for your life, whether you're a number 1 draft pick and you just want to get on the field, or whether you're a guy who signed a training camp deal and you're just hoping to make the roster, it's a constant battle in the NFL and pro sports because it's so competitive. So these guys are used to it. I mean, even Fernando Mendoza talks about his time in Indiana and how even though he knew that he was brought in to start, still there was a competition with a quarterback who was already on the roster. So they are used to it. They are conditioned to it. But still, I think in any situation where there's competition, a lot of times it can cause us to not see our opponent or the rival with respect and treat them the way that we would want to be treated. And I'm really impressed with how both Kirk Cousins, who's been through quarterback battles before and has lost QB battles before, has lost his starting nod before. But I'm impressed with how he and Fernando Mendoza are handling this situation in Vegas. So we will also hear from the head coach of the Raiders as he prepares to make his decision because the season kicks off in just a few weeks. It's pretty incredible that we're now into the second half of August. It kind of blows me away. So I'm excited for what we've got on tap today and glad to have you with us. Please connect with us on social media. Really neat to be able to extend the conversation to our various social media sites. And actually, Zach and I, as we get into a rhythm and a routine, at least one of our social media sites, Instagram, is giving us fits because of how it changes the videos, or I don't know if it zooms in. I am not a social media maverick by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd gotten into a comfort zone at least with both Twix and Facebook. And we'd love to connect with you there. But if you're someone who uses Instagram, like a bunch of my friends, even my nieces, one of them has Insta, the other one has TikTok. They don't use any other social media, maybe Pinterest when they're looking for artsy ideas. But I'm still figuring out how to use both Insta and TikTok. And Zach and I, we put these videos up, and for some reason on Instagram, they cut off the top of my head, even though he's using the same dimensions that he's used in the past. So, that's driving us a little bit batty, but we'll get it right. And I feel like as we approach the end of week number 3, and this is pretty crazy because 3 weeks can go by so fast, but as we approach the end of week 3 of our brand new show, that we've gained a lot of traction this week. I want to say thank you to those of you who reached out on social media over the last 24 hours, because Thursday was National Radio Day. I didn't mark it yesterday here on the show. I use social media for that, but so many of you went to my posts on social and shared such kind words, and also a lot of "I miss yous. Where are you now? Can't you please come back to the overnights?" No, but I'm so thankful that a lot of new people are subscribing to our YouTube channel. And here's the cool thing: we make it available for you on demand. So as soon as we get done, Zach cuts up the show into first hour, second hour. He throws it up on your favorite me. Talking is hard sometimes. Your favorite podcast platform, she said, whether it's Amazon or Google. I get so excited that my brain is moving at a different speed as my mouth. Podcast platform: Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple. So find it and listen whenever and wherever you like. Or if you want to see the video, of course, you can find it here on YouTube. And we know that we have to continue to spread the word and make those connections, but it was kind of neat to get so many congratulations on National Radio Day. And of course, I'm celebrating a bit of an anniversary myself this month. No, not my wedding anniversary. That comes in December, but that is, of course, the most special. So we'll do some chatting and some sharing and some hard-hitting football analysis on this Friday. It's not a flower Friday. What is it? It should be a feel-good Friday, I think. It should be one of those weekends that you cherish because it's the end of the summer. And while I can't wait for the end of the summer because it's 105 degrees now every afternoon, and it's going to be just as hot, if not hotter, in Oklahoma this weekend, I certainly know that once football season gets here, it dominates. If you work in this business in sports broadcasting, or if you work in the sports industry in a different capacity, agent, vendor, someone who runs a stadium, maybe you plan your entire life around the games and the schedule that your favorite team keeps. Whatever the case is, football tends to move in like a big elephant to the center ring of the circus and just squash anything else that it sits on. And yeah, that's a perfect metaphor. I bet you can see that mental picture. And so once the NFL comes in and college football comes in, there's not a whole lot of time for anything else on the weekend. So I am cherishing these last couple weekends. We've got 3 to go, though Labor Day weekend is a college football weekend, big time college football weekend. And actually my hub's favorite team, his family's favorite team, gets back into the action and back on the field. And so it's coming quickly. So I hope that you are looking forward to the weekend. Just want to say again, my thank you, a sincere thank you to Waco Surf, because they're partnering with us, the very first corporate partner and business partner, courtesy of Stephanie and Rogue Media Network. But Waco Surf, it's an opportunity for people who are people come from other states. We're going out of state this weekend who desperately need some relief from the heat. So they've got a hotel, they've got the cabins, they got spots where you can drive and park your RV. And so it's a great opportunity with summer weekends dwindling to get to your favorite water park and stay and play at Waco Surf. All right. So we are jumping in with a bold statement here from one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. And I love the fact that Joe Burrow has had it. He is done with the waiting for what might come, building an organization that can be a winner. He's done being patient. No, he has put it out there and he's hoping that by speaking it, and I think not just into the universe, but also speaking it boldly, proclaiming that he's done waiting. The time is now, that he'll be held accountable. And I think that's important. Now, maybe I'm placing a little bit too much emphasis on the cognitive process. I don't know if this was intentional. Joe Burrow may have just said it off the cuff, but I feel like it's the perfect place to start on a Friday, heading into another full preseason weekend, understanding what's on the line for so many of these teams, and that you've got to believe or manifest it in the universe if you want to go out there and kick some double curvy roads this season, Joe Burrow.
I'm trying to put it out. I'm trying to put it out into the world. I'm trying to manifest it. I'm trying to show our guys the urgency that I have and that I want us to have as an organization to go and make it happen. You can keep pushing it down the road, or you can talk about it now and say this is the year. And I'm tired of saying next year. This is it. Your life is too short to keep pushing things down the road, and I'm trying to instill some urgency and some intensity in everybody to go and be great every day. And
Yes, let's go, Joe Burrow. Carpe diem. And actually, there's a little more there where a reporter asked him to clarify. Are you saying that this is the year? And he says, yes, there is no time like the present. So tremendous. So Joe Burrow is not only throwing it out there, hoping that the universe cooperates, but what he's really doing is laying down the gauntlet. And this is not intended for his opponents. This is not intended for the rest of the AFC North. This is intended for Joe Burrow so that he can be held accountable and people can remind him what he said. But you said on August 20th, Thursday, right before the second preseason weekend, you said, Joe Burrow, and no doubt, as the media, we're like elephants. We never forget. We never let a good story go. And very often, we never let a bad story go. Joe Burrow is not only letting everyone know his expectations, that he's done waiting till next year. It has to be this year. But he's also putting his locker room on notice because he is one of the leaders of that Bengals locker room. His locker room's on notice. His coaches are on notice. And actually, if you follow any of the industry insiders or analysts, there is a very real sense, of course, that Zach Taylor nearly lost his job as the head coach of the Bengals at the end of last season, but also that he is very much on a hot seat. In fact, it could be orange hot because there is a lot of expectation there that hasn't been fulfilled over the last several seasons. They have done a ton of work to beef up their defense, and that's really been the Achilles heel for them. Now, granted, when Joe Burrow is not healthy, that's been a problem. And he has definitely dealt with injuries over the last couple of years, even going back to his rookie season now. And he's paid a hell of a lot of money. He's one of the top paid quarterbacks in the NFL, according to average annual value. The Bengals, of course, believe he is their quarterback of the now and of the future, and they want to win with him. They get to a Super Bowl one time, but they've not been able to maintain that consistency. And even when they have made it into the playoffs, of course, it's been frustrating for them because they've run into the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a frustration shared by a good chunk of the AFC. But I love it that Joe Burrow is not hiding. He's putting it out there to manifest it. He's speaking. I mean, how many people I don't know how many people believe in positive, not just thinking, but speaking. I certainly believe that we're supposed to speak words of life and not death, and that there is power in what we say. I don't know that the universe cares so much, but I know a lot of times that is how I build myself up, and also how, like Joe Burrow is doing, I let people know this is my goal. This is the standard. I am not going to pretend like I don't have really high expectations. And I'm also not going to pretend that when I don't meet those goals and expectations, or I fall short, or I fail, that it doesn't crush me and disappoint me. But I like that he is serving notice both internally and externally that these are the expectations. I'm done waiting for tomorrow. I'm done waiting for the next day. I'm ready. We're ready. This is the goal. The finish line is in February. We fully intend to be a team that finally can say we achieved our goals. Now, is that getting back to the Super Bowl? Of course. Is that winning the Super Bowl? Absolutely. So much has to go right between now and then. Burrow, number one, has to stay healthy. Number two, that newly built defense needs to come together and gel and be able to carry its own weight, because it's been so imbalanced around the Bengals for the last several years, where the expectation and really the weight on the Bengals offense has been so heavy. In essence, they've had to cover up the sins of the defense, right? A multitude of sins, mistakes, allowing receivers to go in and rack up 200+ yard games. Just the number of yards that defense has given up over the last several years. Well, they've worked to rebuild that defense like they had to rebuild the offensive line after Joe Burrow got crushed his rookie season. Now can they show us balance? And here's the other critical factor. The AFC North is wide open. You've got a brand new coach in Mike McCarthy, veteran coach, of course, but a brand new coach in Mike McCarthy with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as much as I respect Aaron Rodgers for his Hall of Fame career, as much as I believe he's a first ballot guy who's going in, and his achievements and his accomplishments are not diminished by his time, I just don't know what you might get that's different from him than what they had a year ago under Mike Tomlin. But I am prepared to be wrong, and I'll be thrilled for the Steelers and for Mike McCarthy and for Aaron Rodgers too, if he can go out on a high note. But there's some uncertainty there because they've had transition again at the coaching position for the first time in nearly 2 decades. They're without Mike Tomlin. How about the Baltimore Ravens? Very young team. Okay. So they're in a different place. They've rebuilt their defense and brought in an infusion of young talent to go along with a few core leaders. Yes, they've got Lamar Jackson, and yes, there are a couple of guys around him, but a lot of the roster is really young. And let's not forget, they've got a first-time head coach. Jesse Minter has been with the Ravens at different times during his career, but this was John Harbaugh's coaching strategies and voice and plans and his vision. This is the AFC North, this is the craziest turnover ever. I'm not sure that I would have ever believed if you told me that the Ravens and the Steelers, who had the 2 longest tenured head coaches, would turn over at that position and see new fresh blood at that position in the same year. It's pretty jarring. I'm so thankful for John Harbaugh that he's still in the league, because if it was neither Harbaugh nor Tomlin still coaching, I'm not sure what I would do. I would miss those guys tremendously, because most of the time that I've spent covering the NFL, they have been coaches. Can't wait to see what Harbaugh does in New York, but he's not the AFC North's problem anymore. So Jesse Minter, he heads a new coaching staff there. And while Lamar Jackson has shown that he has the mental capacity really to adjust and to be flexible and to learn a new system, he's done it multiple times, right? He's won MVP awards with 2 different coordinators, and now he's got a new voice, but still a lot of change. And so they have to settle in. And what type of learning curve is there for Jesse Minter as the new head coach? And then, of course, you think about Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, Browns, starting with another head coach. Don't know about their quarterback. They've got a difficult schedule. So all that to say that this absolutely could be the year for the Bengals if they can come out of the gate fast, because that's generally a challenge for them, where they will limp out of the starting gate in the NFL season. But also if that defense can really come together quickly and can play with some intensity and a sense of urgency, Can they follow the lead of Joe Burrow, who says, I'm tired of waiting for next year. This is the year. I'm putting it out there. Hold me accountable. Remind me. But also, Bengals locker room and coaching staff, hear what I say, because this is the expectation. Love it. Great way to start your season. And of course, they're heading into preseason week number 2, but also terrific way to start our Friday here on All In. Love to connect with you on social media. Thank you so much for all the kind words about National Radio Day. Coming up next, well, a bit of a welcome to the NFL rookie moment, even if it was in a game that did not count. But what does the Raiders head coach have to say about the quarterback battle between Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza? It's going to be a fabulous Friday, a feel-good Friday here on All In with Amy Lawrence, YouTube, and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Providence. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Happy Friday to you. Glad to be with you. It feels like the calm before the storm of the weekend, although we love road trips in our family. And so I hope you have some fun plans for this weekend. Again, there are not that many left before we get to Labor Day. And honestly, labor on Labor Day, that's what I've done because the start of the college football season or the NFL in the past. I usually end up working on Sirius XM. And to that end, we've got a bit of an announcement. I'll put it out there on social media as well. But with these last few weekends here of the summer, it's definitely imperative that you take the time away because you have to get back into your routines pretty much. After that, you've got whether it's kids in school or the work routines that people are done taking vacations, your bosses are done taking vacations. And so there's no more time off. And it definitely feels different once we get past Labor Day. I know that I generally enjoy working holidays because there's always a sporting event or different sports associated with every holiday. So I likely will be laboring on Labor Day. Not here. I'll be working on Sirius XM, I'm sure, or maybe local Houston radio. But I don't mind that because there's so much football to talk about. So love to hear from you. I can see a bunch of you that are already in the stream. Yay. Thank you so much. It's really neat. In fact, in a phone call with my boss on Thursday, Corey said, I noticed there are a bunch of comments being posted during the live stream indicating that you've got an audience that's engaged and they return and they're now making it a habit. So you all are doing me a solid, doing me a favor. Thank you for that. I would absolutely love to know where you are and how you are watching. I have even heard from one woman who said she listens. So she's got the YouTube up on her phone while she walks on the beach. So that's amazing. Just so cool that you can take us along with you. So yeah, please let us know where it is that you're tuning in from. And we do love to share some of those comments. We've seen a pretty healthy stream of comments over the course of the first 3 weeks, and we definitely hope that expands. However, it doesn't matter to me if you watch live or if you watch after the fact, if you listen to it on your favorite podcast platform. I'm just really excited to engage with you all again and to reestablish connections with sports fans that I have enjoyed talking to for years. Okay, so quick announcement about the show on Monday. Again, I'll put it out there on social. We'll try to spread the word, if you will. But because I will be working on Sirius XM NFL radio on Monday morning, so that was a request that came in from one of my managers at Sirius XM. I'll be doing a show from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Monday. I will then turn around, flip the camera on, turn the computer a different direction because at mom's house, we're going to do this again. At mom's house, the light comes in from a different place, blah, blah, blah. I got to make sure I set up the studio quickly. So it'll take me about 2.3 minutes to go from Sirius XM NFL radio to setting up the camera and making sure we're connected. But it's a pain in the rear to tape a show. It actually creates way more work than if we just do it live. So what we're going to do, the beauty of the internet, I guess I will take this as a modern convenience. We're going to start the show an hour later on Monday. So for those of you, it won't matter if you're someone who watches it on demand or listens to the podcast. But if you're one of those people that watches us live, just know that on Monday, August 24th, we will do the show 2 hours, but we'll start it an hour later at noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central Time. And I will continue to repeat that and also put it out there on our social media. But I think the neat thing is, this is something I didn't know about YouTube until I started the channel. The neat thing is that you can actually put posts and announcements up on YouTube as well. And so we're going to try to reach you however we can. But for those of you who enjoy and I can tell by your streams, you enjoy watching and following along live, just want you to know that you can catch us an hour later on Monday at noon Eastern. That's 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, or wherever you happen to be in this great United States of America. Okay, so we're talking about preseason week 2, a couple of games on Thursday to kick off the slate for the weekend. And once again, Fernando Mendoza out there on the field for the Raiders, only this time, instead of throwing a touchdown that everyone celebrated, and I did too, we talked about it here. In fact, I think we showed the video after Fernando Mendoza's NFL debut. him throwing that touchdown and hearing what he had to say afterwards about how it was his happy place and he was so full of joy on the field. Well, instead, he gets this welcome to the NFL moment with a pick six against the Texans on Thursday. And how about this? It's a rookie that he knows well who ends up picking him off. It's a former Clemson product. And so he gets picked off and the ball goes back to the house. Eek. Just one of those things that you got to go through when you are a young quarterback. Better to do it now than to do it when you're on the field in a game that counts. But yeah, what a neat moment for the Houston Texans and for them, Woody, to be able to get a Wade Woodaz. I couldn't remember his first name. Woodaz, who's the rookie out of Clemson. So, maybe Mendoza's run into him before. But to get that pick six out of the way, because there was going to be one eventually. He actually did try to make a tackle, but Woodaz took the ball 80 yards. And so, yes, you win some, you lose some. These defensive players are trying to make the job, or trying to make the team and get a job and keep a job as well. But I'm glad that Mendoza didn't add some injury to insult and then hurt himself while he's trying to make a tackle on a dude who is much bigger than he is. So Mendoza then has to stand in front of the microphones, because this is what good quarterbacks do. You own it. You take accountability. He has to talk about the interception and that moment in his second preseason game.
Yes, it was play action play and went through my progression. Probably should have checked it down to the flat, saw the flat player relate to him. And at that point, I started backing up and threw the check down to Mike Washington, and it was not a good throw. We weren't on the same page, and it was a interception.
I feel like, even though it's way too early to rave about the way that he approaches his media responsibilities, we've seen this going back to his days in college, especially at Indiana, with all the extra spotlight on him as a Heisman Trophy candidate and then winner. And of course, the leader of a team that almost no one would have told you was a championship contender at the beginning of the season. He is so adept at handling the pressure, but also the spotlight that comes with being not just a star quarterback in college, but even more so, it's magnified when you're in the NFL. And the reason that I'm impressed is because he doesn't, now this is early in his career, okay? It could change. Quarterbacks, pro athletes, they get jaded. You get tired of answering the same questions over and over again. But at least now, in the case of Mendoza, he will stand there and he will respond honestly, candidly, openly. He's genuine, whether the question is about a positive moment or whether it's a question about his first ever pick six. He breaks down the play. He tells you exactly what happened. And maybe halfway through the season, that isn't the case anymore. Maybe when he's done enough of these press conferences, he keeps it shorter and sweeter. But for now, you can understand why people enjoy talking to him and why I like to share the video and the audio here on the show, because you don't get this a lot of times, even from rookie quarterbacks. You don't get that honesty. You don't get that accountability. You may get the, oh, I played like crap and that was my fault. But for him to actually tell you what went wrong and what he should have done and what he wishes that he could have done differently, it's really refreshing, actually. And so without Mike Tomlin, who won't be doing press conferences this year, I'm definitely going to miss all his Tomlinisms. Like, for instance, when you ask him about a rookie, sometimes he will tell you, well, he didn't pee down his leg. So that's a positive. He didn't pee himself. So I guess we'll take that as a check mark for our rookie in his debut. It's going to be a very different NFL season without a Mike Tomlin who is speaking to us as a coach, defending his team or ripping his team, either one, but who's always in coach mode. But we still have Dan Campbell. I love Dan Campbell. His press conferences are gold. And we obviously still have a Fernando Mendoza who is willing to speak up now anyway. I hope he doesn't become jaded. I hope he doesn't become guarded, because I've really enjoyed hearing from him already. Again, he's refreshing and an almost youthful, and I know he's young, but it's not like he's a kid. A youthful and maybe a bit naive Green type of way. But I hope that doesn't change because I really do think it makes him not just more accessible, but it also makes him a guy that represents himself, his team, his coaching staff well, the NFL well. As a number one overall pick, you're going to have to do a lot of media as a quarterback, especially whenever he happens to take over the starting job, because he will. This is going to be a part of his almost daily life. And it can be a lot, and it can be annoying and irritating. But it's almost as though, at least right now, he's determined to show grace wherever he has the opportunity. And that's awesome. So good for you, Fernando. I, as someone who will tell athletes, welcome to the dark side when you make the jump to media, I'm really impressed with what we've heard from him, even going back to his last season in college at Indiana. All right, now the quarterback battle itself continues to rage on. We know that Clint Kubiak, new head coach of the Raiders, had installed Kirk Cousins, at least initially, just to get through the preseason as QB1. But it doesn't mean that he's determined his starter for the first week of the season. So the latest, coach.
We got another week. We're playing. I don't want anyone to be comfortable in their job. That's how it should always be that way from all positions. So, we'll just keep going forward.
Okay, so he hasn't determined yet who will get the nod for week number 1, and that's definitely a debate among sports fans, among analysts, among radio hosts and YouTube hosts. What should they do? If you're the Raiders, and especially if you're Clint Kubiak, of course you want to win. You're in a very difficult division in the AFC West with 3 teams that have playoff expectations. Obviously, the Broncos had a shot at getting back to the Super Bowl. They hosted the AFC Championship. We know that Bo Nix got hurt the week before, and so that kind of derailed their ability to be competitive with the Patriots on the offensive side of the ball. But they certainly have expectations. The Chiefs, according to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're full speed ahead. And with him back on the field, Travis Kelce returning, some tweaks to their offense, they're a team that, because of all their experience, are not going to be a cream puff. If you underestimate the Chiefs and their desire to erase the bad taste of last season, well, then you do it at your own peril. And then, of course, the Chargers. And with Jim Harbaugh, now another year to be able to establish his culture, and really the off seasons where a lot of that culture building is done. And so good for him. He's another one that's so genuine, whose press conferences you just can't miss. I heard him do a stint on Pat McAfee's show where he was sharing with them about an injury, and he was brokenhearted. He was crushed over it. And there he is on this radio. Well, it's not radio. Well, it's partly radio, kind of like what we do on Pat McAfee's show. And he's essentially he's brokenhearted. He's dejected, and he's being very open and honest and authentic about that. And so he's another one that, as much as he's been around the league, he was a quarterback in the NFL, obviously coached the San Francisco 49ers before he moved to Michigan, won a national championship there. Now he's back with the Chargers. He still loves to tell stories about his dad, who's a very active presence, a former coach himself, very active presence in the life of the two Harbaughs. And he's not only is he a great storyteller, but he's got a terrific sense of humor. And so his press conferences are also tremendous. He actually laughs at himself a lot of the time too. But back to the Chargers in the AFC West, they're going to continue to get better simply because Jim Harbaugh is that kind of a coach, and he will push them forward. And of course, he tells us that Justin Herbert is the best quarterback on the planet. So now it's an opportunity for him to prove it. So the Raiders are going to be digging uphill this entire season, regardless of which quarterback they start. But do they want to throw Fernando Mendoza into the fire? Because sometimes if you throw your young quarterback in there too quickly, the development can actually go backward. So much depends upon who he has around him. So much depends upon how he takes coaching and training, and of course, who's doing the coaching and training. And so there are a lot of questions, but that is definitely a quarterback battle for which we are anticipation along with the Browns. And when Rob Motti joins us next hour, about 20 minutes after the hour, we'll ask him about the strategy for the Raiders and how they should handle this. Thank you for finding us on our social media sites. We've got shorts up on Insta and TikTok, shorts of all variety, like last Friday when it was a Flower Friday and my dogs made a cameo, though I did cheat because I had treats in my hands above them to get them to sit at attention and to be cute. So no Flower Friday today. She's gone. She's at grandma's. But I'd love to connect with you. So good to know that many of you are already finding the show and are making it a part of your daily routine. That is awesome. I am so appreciative. Coming up here as we head up toward the top of the hour, it's another example of a feel-good story, though this one comes with a bittersweet component. But find your feels on this Friday straight ahead here on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to CentralTexasCattleBaronsBall.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional tree company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
That'll get you bopping on a Friday. I'm so glad to have you with us here as we wrap up week number 3. That's pretty crazy because I feel like I spent so much time in the month of July being full of anticipation, wanting to get started. And now that we're underway, the weeks are flying and we haven't even gotten to football season yet, where really it's kind of a shift in the work week for me, where it starts with Thursday kickoff to the football weekend and runs through the Monday, not just the Monday Night Football, but of course then the injuries that follow on Tuesday. So it's a Thursday to Tuesday work week is how I feel. But it's going to be so different because the last 13 years of my career, I was essentially working those late nights and overnights, of course. And so I would get on the air immediately after the football games were done. It's going to be very different, especially with a 2-hour format, to sift through what's most important and figure out, hey, this is where I want to concentrate on a Monday. But man, the Monday after a Sunday in the NFL, and of course we got to do college football as well. I don't think 2 hours is enough. However, I will cut myself off and Zach will cut me off at 2 hours. Thanks for hanging out with us again on this Feel Good Friday. And also want to say a huge thank you to those of you who responded to my post about National Radio Day, which was Thursday. I didn't mention it on the show here because my boss, Corey, would like me to remind people that you can watch the show and that it's now a YouTube staple. But radio is my first love, going back to when I was a young teenager, and I used to listen to sports on the radio even before I understood the science of radio, the art of radio, even before I recognized it as theater of the mind. I just fell in love with the idea that I could tell a story, or I could describe the action in a way that people didn't feel like they were missing it simply because they couldn't hear it with or see it with their own eyes, and they could only hear it through my voice and with my vision. And I just started telling everyone that I was going to be the first female Johnny Most, which at the time he was the iconic play-by-play announcer for the Boston Celtics. And so falling in love with radio. I used to listen to Monday Night Football on, believe it or not, a yellow Walkman on my radio. I was supposed to be in bed sleeping, but I would sneak the Walkman under my covers and I would listen to Monday Night Football. And so Westwood One has been a part of my life as long as I can remember. And it's really neat to now be able to work for Westwood One and to be part of some of the studio shows and even play-by-play that I've done for them in the past. So this is the culmination here of 30 years of chasing a dream. And I, every now and then, will stop to look back. I don't do it a lot. I kind of understand why, say, a LeBron will tell you, yeah, I don't got time to look back, or Tom Brady. Like I'll look back at my career when I'm done or when I'm reflecting at the Hall of Fame podium. And so I don't do a lot of that, especially when here I am this summer marking 30 years in the radio industry. And while radio is still very much a part of my career, I'm jumping into a new adventure that really has pushed me out of my comfort zone. And so just to share that post, and there is a photo, girl with a microphone. That's how I always have seen myself for 30 years. No matter what stress in my life, whether personally or professionally, whatever might be swirling or storming around me, the nerves that I might have over a particular interview or wanting to talk about a game in just the right way, or even the vitriol that would come at me from fellow members of the industry. A lot of guys early in my career did not want me to be part of the club, so to speak. So I felt a lot of that early, or whether just the crap that's on social media. I had to learn how to deal with that as well. And I'm not a thick skin girl. I don't have a thick skin. I'll never have a thick skin. I'm extremely sensitive, but I've learned how to manage and navigate so much, been fired multiple times, had to get up after getting knocked down and figure it out again. And so it's been a nonstop process, which means you don't have a lot of time to take a breath and look back. But 30 years, if you had told me as a 16-year-old girl that someday I'd be celebrating 30 years in this business, that I would have the same joy and passion, a lot more experience. Now I consider myself an expert in radio after all these years. Now I get to teach it, right, to the broadcasters of the next generation. But I don't think I would have believed you. But God placed this passion in my heart, and he has continued to open doors for me. And I'm so grateful for all those people who've followed along, who've listened, who watch, but also the members of the industry and the athletes, the coaches who have encouraged me and supported me and validated me by being part of what I do on radio and also on TV as well. And now on YouTube. So thank you. If you want to check out that post at A-Law Radio, also on the Facebook page, which is still After Hours with Amy Lawrence. But I suspect that if you get on the interwebs and you Google Amy Lawrence, that these things will pop up. And in fact, Insta, TikTok, I've actually had some family members Google it. So I know that if you search for All In with Amy Lawrence, it pops up. Same thing on the podcast platform. So again, humbly from the bottom of my heart, I am so unbelievably grateful that I still get to do this for a living and that you all are along for the ride, especially this very new ride. It still smells like a new car. All right. So this is an opportunity, and at some point we'll dress it up and there'll be fun production, but an opportunity for you and I to find our feels. So it's a Find Your Feels Friday. And this story that surfaced and that I started reading about over the last few hours actually initially made me sad until I continued reading and understood the approach of the athlete who is sharing what was a very traumatic experience in her life. Now, she is a professional athlete. She's not only an Olympic medalist for the United States of America in the 1500 meters, she's got a bronze from the Olympics, but she's also a world champion. And if you follow track and field, you follow the sport of running, and hers is more short track and sprint than long distance. But if you follow the, Team USA in the Olympics, then you know the name Jenny Simpson. Well, she is now indicating that she's done running, even though running has been her lifeblood. And what precipitated the change for her is that about 2 months ago, she had a major medical event in which she almost died. She was running. This is her Instagram post that she just released in the last few hours. But she was running. She went into cardiac arrest, and there were some people, praise God, that he sent people to be there at the time when she went into cardiac arrest, and she got CPR, and they gave her the care that she needed until the emergency responders could get there. But even after she got to the hospital, she went into cardiac arrest again, and her heart wasn't working, and she was on life support. And I love what she has to say about the fact that her body was dying. And I'd encourage you to go and read this post and look at some of what she's put out there. But her body was dying, but her spirit was strong, and her heart would not give up. And so here she is saying goodbye to what's been a professional running career. I can't imagine being in her shoes and understanding that she can never run again. Yeah, her body was dying, but her spirit wouldn't give up. She fought for her life. And of course, people know her. They love her. She's got an entire track and field community, USA, Olympics, and everything else that she's done in her career. And now these people get to support her. And so she's alive. Not only is she alive, but how about this? This is where you find your feels. She doesn't want you to be sorry for her. In fact, she said, please don't bombard me with I'm sorries, because I'm not sorry. I am still alive. I am still here. And while it's the end of my running career, I still have a life that I can use for good. And so I appreciate her perspective so much. As you see, I love the picture with her dogs. And she said it took her a while to figure out what she wanted to say in the words. But how about this? She is celebrating the fact that she is still alive. She's still here. She can share her story, and other people might benefit from it. And you know what it reminded me of? First of all, Jenny Simpson, amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. I've watched you run, and I am so thankful that you are still alive and that you got the care that you needed, and that you can still smile, and that even if you can't run, you and a witness to share with other people. But something else that immediately popped into my mind as I was reading her story and as I was finding my feels about Jenny, and right away, I felt sorry for her until I read what she had to say. Don't say I'm sorry. Instead, understand that I'm grateful for life and that I'm so, so, so thankful that I can tell this story, that I'm here to tell this story. It reminded me instantly of Damar Hamlin. Instantly. And it's not just because I will never forget that Monday night. I know many of you, as sports fans, football fans, and even outside the sports industry, we were hanging on for 2 days, waiting for news about Damar Hamlin. If you remember, he collapsed on the field during Monday Night Football. It was Bills, it was Bengals. We saw in that moment the life-saving measures that were taken, even though twice he went into cardiac arrest and they had to revive him. And then they get him to the hospital, and it's not for what felt like 2 days before we knew that he was going to survive and that he was going to make it. And what an impact his story has meant, not just to the NFL. Nothing stops the NFL. Nothing gets that behemoth to cease operations and to be still. But Damar Hamlin did. And in those 2 days, the number of locker rooms that were having conversations about putting their lives on the line, about faith and what happens when you die, and are you ready to die if that would happen to you? And so here is Damar. He is continuing to share his story. He's such a bright light. He's got a charity. Oh my gosh, I'm sure you remember. I remember because every day on the show at night too, we would watch the numbers on his GoFundMe page. A charitable organization, we would watch those numbers skyrocket, and the people from all walks of life, outside sports, inside football, who were donating to his organization. Phenomenal to see the response. It's because we wanted to do something. We wanted to help. And really for 2 days, the NFL did nothing. There was no talk of games. There was really no practice. It was all about praying for Damar and believing that he was going to make it, and just understanding, gosh, life is hanging in the balance here, and it's so much more important than football. But sometimes life and football, those moments, those urgent moments that really remind us what's most important, they do intersect. So as I was reading about Jenny and looking at her post and going from, oh man, that sucks, I'm so sorry to hear this, to, wow, I love her approach. And actually, I would love to get her on the show as well. So I'm going to work on that. But the finding your feels, I hope, swings from a sadness and a dejection to, boom, wow, she's got the right perspective, as it did with Damar Hamlin. He nearly died on the field multiple times. And also, if you've not seen the video, it is pretty amazing, of him running into the athletic trainer who saved his life during preseason. There was a practice video that was put out there that was really neat. You can search it and find it. Just a heartwarming moment. The embrace, and I mean the emotional embrace that he and that trainer shared. As you can try to put yourself in Damar Hamlin's shoes and just understand, he's looking at the guy who saved his life. And so I instantly thought of Damar and all the good he's doing and the bright light that he is everywhere he goes. And I'll tell you one more story. I know we're past the top of the hour. Thank you, YouTube, for not having a strict clock. Thank you, Corey, for not having a strict clock. When I was in Las Vegas for Super Bowl week a couple years ago, Damar was there, and he of course was doing a ton of interviews. I think he was promoting a product or maybe an organization that he was partnering with. And of course, as he walked around the conference center there in Vegas, there was a buzz wherever he went, a crowd of people who wanted to take, and this is a lot of media people, but also fans and members of PR staffs and other players who wanted to see him and shake his hand, give him a hug, take a photo, take a selfie. Well, there was this one moment where I definitely will never forget. It just reminded me of the emotion in the Bills locker room and with the Bills organization after Damar collapsed on the field. He had his big group of people around him, and then Josh Allen was also right there, maybe, 10 yards away from where I was doing interviews. And Josh travels with an even bigger entourage. He doesn't normally do anything that's not previously scheduled or doesn't come with a sponsorship. I mean, he doesn't need to do interviews, but he was there on Radio Row for a select number of conversations. And his group, his entourage, and Damar Hamlin's group passed each other. And as Josh saw Damar Hamlin and recognize, now Damar is not a big guy, but it was Damar in the middle of that group of people that were walking by his entourage. He stops. Everybody around him stops. He makes a beeline for Damar, and the embrace that they exchange, the hug, the kind words. I was close enough to be able to see it and to hear them talking. And it just reminded me of how that moment for the Bills and for the NFL was unforgettable. And it probably changed the way that a lot of these guys approach the game. But also, Josh had been very open about the fact that these conversations about faith in the locker room after Damar, as they were waiting to hear good news about Damar, that they changed him as well. And he's since become a husband and a father. And man, that can change your perspective and alter your priorities, to be sure. But yeah, to read about Jenny Simpson and to be happy for her that she's still alive and that she can share this story, but to instantly think of Damar and what a moment that was in NFL history that I will never forget. And I'm so grateful that he's still alive and that he's doing interviews and that he's sharing that bright light of his wherever he goes. And I'm sure Jenny will do the same. We're already seeing it in just her social media posts. So find your feels on this Friday. All right, coming up next, there's been a lot of attention on joint practices in the NFL. Some guys love them. Some guys hate them. Some guys are even willing to go in front of a microphone and say, I can't stand this. But also the NFL wants you to know that if you're going to brawl, you're going to pay. Hour one and then some in the books here. All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Happy Friday to you. We are into hour number 2, and our guest is coming up quickly. So excited to welcome Rob Maaddi, longtime NFL insider and AP writer. He will join us for the first time on All In, and it'll be about, 10 minutes from now. Let's go. Now, he has done a lot of coverage of the Eagles in the past because he is maybe even dual base, but I know Philadelphia has been a home for him. He also does a lot of work in Tampa. But he asked me about, what we might hit, just because the NFL is a behemoth and there's a zillion topics, just so he could be ready. And as I was looking over his social media, I saw that he'd done a recent sit down with Saquon Barkley. He's got great access and insider connections. And so I'm excited to ask him about his conversation with Saquon. But even as I was thinking about that with Rob, I saw this clip from Saquon Barkley about joint practices. And we'll share it with you here in a second. That joint practices on this Friday are still hotly debated because why? The fights, the brawls. If none of those ever happened, we wouldn't be wasting our time worrying about joint practices and whether or not they should continue. The only time joint practices get any type of attention outside of the beat reporters that are covering the team's camps on a daily basis, there's 2 reasons. Number one, if someone gets hurt as part of a joint practice and it's a serious injury, we often hear about it. And then these joint activities are called into question. Second time we hear about it is when there's brawls. And every single summer there are brawls. Now, the Saints and the Cowboys are an extreme example of a brawl that took place. And we had talked about this earlier in the week. Oh my gosh, there were guys throwing down their WWE moves. They had not just 2 brawls that required the entire team to make this huge skirmish and scrumble in the middle of the field, but they had other smaller skirmishes also break out. And so they end up getting fined royally by the NFL. And I get it. You could roll your eyes and say Cowboys owners, Saints owners, they have a ton of money. What's the difference? But $500K, at least in the minds of the NFL, is a fairly hefty fine. So both the Cowboys and Saints have been fined $500,000 for that series of fights that occurred at Tuesday's joint practice. And the NFL comes out with its statement about how we're supposed to show sportsmanship. And this is really important to us. I don't know how much sportsmanship you're going to get at joint practices when it's friggin' hot out. Many cases, these guys are outside in the heat where tempers are running high. The adrenaline is spiked. These guys have been lining up against their own teams, offensively, defensively. They've seen the same faces for weeks now, and they're tired of it. But also, the defense doesn't want it. The defense may want to take a shot at the quarterback. The offense or the opposing defense doesn't want you even breathing on the quarterback. And so after they had this big brawl, they kind of split the team up, and then there were more skirmishes that broke out. So the NFL is dropping the hammer and is saying enough is enough, fork over your $500K. But does that mean that we're going to see the end of joint practices because the fights continue to break out? I highly doubt it. It would take a really loud noise from inside the league, the Players Association, for them ever to be canceled. And there are some benefits to it. Generally, it allows you to kind of run some of your basic schemes, get your young players, your rookies, some reps and some snaps when they can make mistakes, and you have a whistle that will stop the play when the coaches have seen enough. But really, again, you're having the chance to run a set or try a defensive scheme against a team that doesn't already know your playbook. So I get it. Is it too dangerous? Has it crossed over that line where we should do away with them? I'm not sure. But I do know that if enough players come out and say, this sucks, that maybe, just maybe, the NFLPA will make it a bigger deal and teams may stop scheduling them as much. And Saquon Barkley, not afraid to tell you what he thinks.
I'm the wrong guy to ask because I hate joint practices, to be honest. I think one day's good, but we play in a ego-filled sport with a lot of men, and I'm all about just putting the work in, and it's good to go against someone new. I think we're at that part of camp where we needed to go against a new face. But I do think if you do it the right way, there's a lot of good out of it. Going against different looks, going against different people. It's hard when you got to run the same play over and over against JC and JD. They're pretty good players, and they get a hint of what you're doing. It's even harder to block. But yeah, when you do it the right way, it's good. But honestly, I'm not really a fan of joint practice.
I'm the wrong guy to ask because I hate joint practices. And he does go on to qualify that with, here are the reasons why they matter or why we continue to do them, but I'm just not a big fan. And again, I feel like nobody would ever talk about them really at all, if not for the moments where there's brawls or someone gets hurt, except of course, if you're AJ Brown and you're Jalen Hurts, and there's been rumors that there was a rift in your relationship, even while you were together on the Eagles roster. But now AJ Brown with the Patriots, they had a joint practice against the Eagles. And so there were a lot of eyeballs on their meeting, their reunion, if you will. It turned out to be much ado about nothing. So joint practices still on the hot seat. We'll see whether or not they continue as we move forward, but we're kind of getting to the end of when they would be appropriate anyway, as we go into the full slate for NFL preseason week number 2. Okay, before we take our break and then welcome in Rob Maaddi, I wanted to follow up on a story that we kind of talked about in its various stages. Number 1, Vita Vea had asked for a trade. He's this unique defender. We know the Buccaneers have built their defense around his skill set, but he didn't like the fact that he was making less than what he was worth and his position is worth and his skill set is worth. And so he, I think, as a negotiating ploy, asked for a trade, knowing that the Bucs were never going to acquiesce. They weren't going to find a trade partner, though they do admit they got calls from other teams. Well, he gets his raise for this season, for next season, and now things have changed, right? And so the trade request, okay, it wasn't really a trade request.
Look, I always wanted to be a Buck, and I wanted to be a Buck for life. And so I'm glad that we were able to get this done. It's something that happens every year. Just so happened to be me this year. But there's just stuff that we both had to figure out on both sides, and we got it all squared away. So I'm happy we can put that all behind us and move forward from here on out.
He goes on to say, they say that you're home. You see, remember on Thursday's show, I did a lot of they say this, they say that. Vita drops a they say, home is where the heart is. I feel like my heart is in Tampa. And so I'm glad that the Bucs have that problem solved and that Vita doesn't have to go somewhere else and worry about starting fresh at the end of camp. And he did get a nice raise. And so the negotiating ploy worked for sure. He goes on to say it's part of the business. I got drafted here. I made Tampa my home. I didn't really want to be traded. It's just my turn to throw it out there into the universe, to use Joe Burrow's term, because this is how you get things done. So he was a hold-in. He was just watching, hanging out, maxing, relaxing for the first few weeks of training camp. And now he can get back on the field. And yeah, this generally does tend to happen with at least 1 or 2 high-profile players every training camp. But it's done. Joint practices, they're called on the carpet. We'll ask Rob Maaddi what he hears from inside the league. But I know he spent some time at Bucs training camp. He had a recent long convo with Saquon Barkley. I'm interested to hear what he has to say about the Raiders and their quarterback situation. And gosh, now's the time to kind of throw out your big questions, especially as we get ready for kickoff and fantasy football drafts as well. So a lot of questions looming around the NFL season 2026. Rob will join us straight ahead. It's All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us on our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Happy Friday to you. It is a football weekend. Not football that counts, but still, you can feel that buzz and energy grow as we get closer to Labor Day, college football kickoff, and then the NFL is not far behind. And man, does it change everything in the sports broadcasting industry. So we've been following some of the biggest news and notes, but it's really my honor and a privilege to welcome our next guest, one of my favorite football insiders, starting year 27 covering the NFL, Rob Maaddi with the Associated Press. And what are you, dual-based, Rob, in Philly and Tampa? Do you go back and forth?
No, I am fully in Tampa now, Amy, and enjoying the extreme heat that we have here. It's no fun, like, being out in training camp and it's like 102. I mean, obviously it's hot up north, right? We were just in New York and Boston, but for us, that felt like a little bit like a fall. It was like, wow, it's 85? Oh, this is so cool. But yeah, tonight my daughters have their first flag football game. I coach like 4 different teams. So I don't get too excited about coaching when it's this humid out there. But you do what you can. You know, you go out there and suck it up and you make sure you're hydrated.
Oh, gosh, I feel you. Since we relocated to Texas, my husband and I last fall, this is my first August through Houston summer. And it just, oh, my gosh, I barely go outside except to play with the dogs. I just can't. You're right about the hydrating. First thing in the morning, where are my electrolytes? So I feel you there. Well, amazing. 27 years covering the NFL. Do you ever get to the point where you feel like, I can't run this rat race anymore?
It's every year is a different challenge, and I think it's changed for me, Amy, as I've become a parent, and as I've watched my daughters grow into becoming football fans. People think like, oh, that's obvious. You cover the NFL, your kids are gonna want to play football and love football, but that really wasn't the case. Like I never pushed them to play. I never said, hey, I want you to do this. I was a baseball guy. I played baseball through college. I love baseball, still cover a little bit of baseball, have my Hall of Fame vote, and they just gravitated towards football. So seeing it a little bit through their eyes has been kind of rejuvenating for me, especially when you get into the grind, because I know like it used to be as a kid growing up, the end of summer meant now you're going to school and now you got to deal with this day in and day out. And I kind of have that same feeling because football is, as much as we love the sport and it's America's king, it's a grind to cover, and it's day in and day out. And it's, it's this year it's going until Valentine's Day. So I don't know how many relationships are going to be a little bit messed up or disrupted because the Super Bowl's on Valentine's Day, but it's still not, there's nothing better than the thrill of a Sunday or a Monday night or Sunday night or Thursday night or whatever it is now, because they're
Wednesday
playing every day of the week at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're right. It definitely is the best reality show on TV, and it's always different. So one of the big stories the last couple of days is Vita Vea, of course, retracting that trade request from the Bucks and gets a raise. And so he's happy, and he says, my home is Tampa, and that's where you are. I want to be in Tampa. I know you've been out at camp. They've got, Vita Vea notwithstanding, they've got some changes on that roster and a very motivated Baker Mayfield. What have you seen from them so far in camp as they navigate a new year?
Amy, I thought it was refreshing to hear Baker Mayfield give an honest take of his contract situation. A lot of guys will just say, hey, we're going to let my agent handle that. I'm here. I'm all business. And he let it be known that he was not happy, that he was frustrated, disappointed, felt disrespected. Vita Vea held in, which is kind of the thing that guys do now, rather than it's smart. Why get fined for missing any of training camp? So he held in, he got his money, $30 million in new money over the next 2 years. And I know Baker kind of imposed that deadline of training camp, but I still feel like if the Bucks go to his agent and have the deal that would make him comfortable, they'll sign that at some point. As you said, very motivated. They're in a season now where I think Todd Bowles, by all accounts, is on the hot seat. After they started 6-2 last year, and they collapsed at the end and not win that division, even in a division that was won by the Panthers at 8-9. And I don't think this division this year is any better. You look around and you see the Panthers with significant injuries already, the Saints with significant injuries, the Falcons. So far, the Bucks are the healthiest team right now coming out of training camp. But Emeka Egbuka, their young wide receiver, first-round pick last year, counting on him to kind of take over and replace Mike Evans, who departed for San Francisco. He's dealing with a toe injury. And Amy, you know as well as I do, some of these things can linger. We saw what a toe injury did with Brock Purdy last year. They need him to be healthy. They need Baker to stay healthy this year. And he's a guy who's going to go out there and play every game no matter what. He started every game for the Bucks since he's arrived in Tampa 3 years ago, but he played through so many injuries that kind of hampered and impacted his ability to play last year. And over the second half of the season, we didn't see, through 8 games, he was probably the leading candidate for MVP.
Yes.
Right? And over the course of all those injuries, the arm, the shoulder, the knee injuries kind of wore him down, and he just wasn't the same guy going out there. So if they can stay healthy with those new additions, as you said, especially kind of revamp that defense, that's kind of been their biggest problem, right? It's odd to say because we've always looked upon Todd Bowles. He's a defensive coordinator, defensive-minded head coach, one of the best coordinators out there. But their area of struggle over the past few years has been their defense. And I feel that it wasn't necessarily Todd Bowles' fault because he just didn't have the pieces in place. And after the season, I recall just giving him that out. Like, hey, you guys struggled on defense. Is it the talent? Is it the coaching? Do you have what you need? And he would not throw Jason Light under the bus, who is one of the better GMs, top GM across the league. But I felt like they didn't have a pass rusher, an edge rusher, somebody who can impact the game by getting to the quarterback. And they kind of got lucky in the draft, and that Reuben Bain fell to them at their spot. And if he can be that guy, and every indication in training camp is he's going to be that guy. Like this guy looks like he wants to wear a gold jacket next week, and he's going to do everything he can to go out there and make that happen. So that could be a big game-wrecking player that they have on that defense. That could then there's a trickle effect. When you get a pass rusher, that's going to help the secondary, which has lost some players, and they're still counting on hoping that Benjamin Morrison can show that he can be healthy at some point and get out there. So I think that'll be a big part of it. I do feel like this is a team that's still hovering in that 9, maybe 10 win range.
Before we move on to other teams and topics, why do you think the Bucs weren't prepared or ready to give Baker Mayfield a contract that would pay him, whether it's over more than 2 years, or would pay him an average annual value with more commensurate with his peers?
It's a great question, Amy. And I think from an organizational standpoint, the Buccaneers have the regime has changed. The Glazer family took over for Hugh Culverhouse at some point, but they take care of their own draft picks, and they've done very well with that, whether it's Levante David, Mike Evans getting a couple contracts, Chris Godwin, Vita Vea now. But there have been some times where they've let some guy, like you go all the way back to Doug Williams, because the contract is winning him, I think at that time might have been something as little as $900,000, which is crazy to think now is pennies to some of these guys. I can understand their point of view in that they still have Baker under contract and under team control because they could franchise tag him, and then they could franchise tag him again. I kind of think, as much as Baker wants that money, and he's gone out there and shown, and he deserves to be paid in that $50+ million range. That's what he's performed like. He's a leader. He's a gunslinger, and he's a guy that can go out there and help the team win games. But when you look at it from a team perspective, there have been some teams who've gone out there and given some guys some contracts and regretted them. And big time, right? Especially some quarterback decisions. And they end up eating a lot of dead money. Deshaun Watson was a disaster in Cleveland, and yet he may still win the starting job. Russell Wilson in Denver and all the money they had to eat. Carson Wentz in Philly and all the money that they had to eat. So I can understand a team saying, all right, go out there, play out this season. And if we don't come to that agreement, we're just going to franchise tag him, and then they could do it again the year after that. So this is one of those rare cases where I can see both sides. Ultimately, Amy, I do think there's going to be a resolution. And maybe if you're a Bucs fan, you would hope that it's not now, because you want Baker is motivated to go out there and stick it to him kind of throughout the season. Not that Baker's going to get complacent. He's not going to get his money and sit down and get all fat and happy. But I think in a scenario like that, it might be best for the Tampa Bay fans to see this guy motivated throughout to try and get them deeper into January.
Especially in a wide open division. And Rob, one of those free agent contracts for quarterbacks that didn't quite work out, Atlanta, Kirk Cousins, they end up drafting Michael Penix. He loses his job. Now he's with the Raiders. And there is a battle that's actually going on there between Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cousins. But really, it's more about philosophy and approach and what the Raiders want to do. They've got another head coach again now, changing at that position. How would you approach it if you've got the rookie quarterback and you've got the veteran and you want to win, but you're in a really tough division, the AFC West?
Yeah, Amy, and there's also the NFC West situation with Arizona. I was in Canton, got to see Carson Beck, and I'll touch on him in a little bit because I have two different philosophies on both guys. I look at the Raiders, when you have Kirk Cousins, a veteran who has proven himself, 4-time Pro Bowler, who's accomplished a lot in this league, and then you have a guy with the expectations of a number one pick like Fernando Mendoza. I know it's 6 or 7 straight number one overall picks have started week 1 in the NFL, but we've heard Tom Brady talk about letting guys sit, his philosophy, and Brady's got a lot of influence in that organization, as we know, but his philosophy is to have a young quarterback learn. And I think Kirk Cousins is an outstanding veteran leader, mentor. I spoke to him a little bit about the mentor role, and he kind of was hesitant to kind of take on that. But he wasn't quite Joe Montana or Brett Favre the way they handled it. But he kind of looked at it as like, I don't know that much more than Fernando, and I don't want it to come across like I know that much more. It's just Kirk being Kirk. But I think he's the ideal guy for Fernando to learn from. And watching the game last night, I think it's pretty obvious that there are some things that Fernando Mendoza has to learn at this next level. And the Texans are a great defense, and they weren't even playing their starters, of course. And he still had some struggles there. He's got to learn some things at this level, and it wouldn't hurt for him to sit at least the first month and potentially longer than that. And Kirk said his job is to hold him off as long as he can. And I don't anticipate the Raiders being a team that's going to be in contention to where they're going to stick with Kirk Cousins the whole season. But if you can get Fernando through half the season watching, learning, and then over the course of the second half of the season, he gets to go out there and learn on the job. That would be my approach with the Raiders. When I look at it from Arizona's perspective, Carson Beck doesn't have those expectations. He wasn't the number one overall pick. The pressure isn't quite the same on Carson Beck. And Jacoby Brissett, as much of a veteran leader that he's been and accomplished, he's not exactly Kirk Cousins. I feel like Arizona could turn to Carson Beck a whole lot sooner than the Raiders turn to Fernando Mendoza. And if I was Mike LaFleur and I was Arizona, I would probably look at turning to Carson Beck early in the first month of the season. But I think Fernando's got what it takes to be a successful franchise quarterback, but we're going to have to wait and see a little bit.
I don't want it to be a situation like we've seen with other franchises and young QBs where his development is actually stunted by being out there too early. And in both those cases with Arizona and Vegas, as much as the pressure and the expectations are different, they're still at the bottom of these divisions. And sometimes there can be so much pressure and impatience, right, for a team to make a move in that situation. So I appreciate your insight there. We were just actually, before you jumped into the show, we were sharing the audio and video of Saquon Barkley talking about how he hates joint practices. Those are in the news right now. But as I was looking at your social today, I saw that you had a sit down with Saquon not that long ago. I really enjoy hearing what he has to say, but what did you learn from Saquon in this latest conversation?
Funny you mentioned that training camp and that quote, because I'm writing about the training camp fights and everything that's happened this week through those joint practices, which is inevitable. It's hot, it's steamy, it's muggy, it's trash talk. It's going to happen. But, sitting down with Saquon, Amy, he's, for as much of a superstar as Saquon Barkley is, and the season that he had 2 years ago is historic, one of the greatest seasons ever by a running back. He's one of the most down-to-earth, approachable, likable guys that I've met across the league. Like, we're doing an interview, and it was through Zoom, and at one point, you've done Zoom, right? It freezes. And most guys, they're just going to do the interview. Saquon, he didn't freeze, but he says to me, "Hey, Rob, I know you're recording this. You're frozen on my screen. Do you want me to stop and redo that question and redo that?" Like, those are the kind of things that you appreciate, because, hey, it is a Zoom interview. It is a YouTube show that I'm doing for the AP. So I didn't know that I was frozen. I was frozen. So it's just those kind of about Saquon, and then just the competitor that he is, the player that he is. I know he was disappointed with how things unfolded last season. Everybody was in Philly, and that offensive line was injured and decimated. And when they lose, like, Lane Johnson may be the most valuable offensive lineman in the NFL in decades, because the Eagles record with him and the Eagles record without him is so different. And the run game and everything they do starts with that offensive line. So as long as Lane can stay healthy, he's certainly, we talked about Gold Jackets earlier, he's headed for Canton 5 years after he retires. If he can stay healthy, if that offensive line can stay healthy and together, with Sean Mannion and his new system and Jalen Hurts being under center a little bit more and some more play actions, I think Saquon can get to, I don't know that he's going to break his record of 2,500 playoffs and regular season that he had a couple of years ago. But I think he could be more in that 1,400 yard range than he was last year. And he's determined to do that. And he wants to go out there. Doesn't want to be a 1-year Super Bowl winner. He wants to win multiple Super Bowls, says all the right things. And of course, this is a team that's got to adjust to what it's going to be like now, life without A.J. Brown. And that situation unfolded the way it did. And it was all love. Amy, it was all love, right? A.J. this week. I love Philly. I love the team. I love the fans. I love that. Like, he took the high road. I appreciate that. But at some point, AJ, you didn't want to be there. You wanted to be traded. And you can love somebody, but you can have a little bit of resentment or some bitterness or whatever it is. But I did see video yesterday. AJ and Jalen shook hands and they kind of chatted a little bit. So it took long enough for them to do that. But I anticipate a big year out of the Eagles, a big year out of Saquon Barkley, and I'm excited to see what this new offense is going to look like with Sean Mannion.
Yet another division that is generally wide open. And even though the Giants have been at the bottom of that division for quite a few years now, the life that's been infused there and the excitement around John Harbaugh taking over as the head coach, and obviously seeing if Jackson Dart can be a consistent future franchise QB. So, Rob, you mentioned Canton a couple times, and to throw you a curveball because I'd like your perspective on this. Roger Craig shares that he has dementia. Of course, he's all love for football. He was so gracious and he was so open and honest in his speech that he had taped. What should football's response be to this Hall of Famer, this iconic player that they've had in their history, sharing on that very magnified stage, that this is a byproduct and that the NFL kind of needs to be paying more attention to it?
It's the reality of a violent sport, Amy. And I don't know what more can be done outside of turning the NFL into flag football, because it's such a violent sport. And they've tried to do, and they continue to do as much as possible, new helmets, improved helmets, changing the rules, changing the safety protocols, making it so to where defensive players now don't necessarily always understand what a tackle is, right? So you've got all of these components, yet the harsh reality of football is the violence. And Roger Craig played in an era where you couldn't go, and I know he's a running back, but he was a running back who was a terrific pass catcher, first thousand guy. If you were a receiver, you feared going over the days. And it's different now where guys don't have to have that fear, and that's why we're seeing receiving and passing yard totals and all of that continue to rise and rise and rise. But I feel that the NFL has tried to evolve, that they've continually attempted to alter the rules, the safety protocols, whatever they can do. But honestly, I sit back and I go, what can you do? You've got these guys going out there and they're playing at 100 miles an hour, and it's his job to make sure he doesn't catch the ball or he hits him as hard as possible to pry the ball loose. And guys are going to get hit and guys are going to get hurt. And it's the sad reality of it. And I just don't know what is going to look like in the future, because there are so many people who are concerned about it, and rightfully so. And then you hear about, obviously, the NFL has thrown full support behind flag football, and it's a thriving sport. I know it. I live it. I coach it. I see it. It's an Olympic sport. But the NFL and flag football are completely different sports. We saw that. I don't know if you watched any of that Fanatics game where Tom Brady steps on the field and Tom Brady suddenly can juke people out. Like Tom Brady, I never had ever pointed to Tom Brady's ability to juke or be elusive to any of my players that said, this is how you want to do it. Yes, this is how you throw. This is how you go through your progressions. But he had an incredible juking ability in that and threw a touchdown. But then it was all downhill for the NFL players because it's a different sport. And the guys who play for Team USA have kind of they know it. They've played it and they excel at it. So that's why it's another reason why I don't think NFL players now need to be in the Olympics. They don't need them. They need time to get acclimated. But I'm going way off topic here. But those are two different sports, and people are not going to be happy if the NFL continues to trend toward being more of a flag football. They want to see the hitting. They want to see the violence. And unfortunately, I don't think Roger Craig is the last case that we're going to hear about. And we've heard about so many others and so many different issues that have arisen because of it. And the mental health surrounding these players is such a big topic, and one that's near and dear to my heart. And I know the NFL is trying to do a lot more when it comes to mental health too, as well.
Well, I'm glad that, as you point out, the concussions are not ignored anymore. Head injuries are not ignored. Sometimes even at the frustration of the athletes, they're pulled off the field. And so, yes, Roger Craig, different era. And he was, again, so gracious and really so complimentary of what football has given him, but a very powerful moment there in Canton. All right, Rob, before I let you go, I don't know how you have time for this, but you and your wife have done a special podcast called Faith on the Field. Now, nearly a decade, continues to grow, and you and I have connected over faith. And something that has really stood out to me, and it's not just football, it's across the board in sports. More athletes are talking about their faith. Last hour, I was talking about DeMar Hamlin just a little bit, and that really seemed like a seminal moment for a lot of NFL locker rooms, where guys like Josh Allen were more open about faith and considering faith. But yeah, Faith on the Field, your podcast. And so you get to examine football from a different perspective.
Yeah, and it's such a passion of mine, Amy. And you mentioned DeMar. I had an opportunity to sit down with him a couple times. I did a Players Summit panel with DeMar, and he's someone who is really impacted by what happened to him, of course, but his faith and his faith journey and his spiritual journey, and how he feels like he was just called to live that, to impact and help other people. But Faith on the Field grew kind of out of a really deep passion that I had 10 years ago. I came home from a mission trip to Ohio, where I play on a team where we play softball or baseball or whatever sport they want to play in prisons against inmates, but we really go to preach the gospel. And I came home from this trip and I was on fire after preaching in maybe 8 or 9 different prisons, seeing thousands of men accept Christ. Amy, we were baptizing guys with bottles of water on home plate. Like, it was the coolest, greatest thing ever. And I came home and I told my wife, I think I need to go in a full-time ministry. And she said, she gave me one of those, honey, I love your heart, but you need to pray about it. Right. And I think you know this now, right? As a wife, if you tell your husband to pray about something, you don't want him to do it. You want God to tell him to do it. So you're not the one who's being held responsible for him not doing it. Because at the time, our daughters were 2. We had just bought this new house in New Jersey. Like, if you go into full-time ministry, how are we paying the bills? That's what she wanted. So I sat down with a pastor who had mentored several of the Eagles players, Kyle Horner, former quarterback at Tennessee before Peyton Manning was there. And Kyle said to me, Pastor Kyle gave me this advice. He said that the world needs you. Like, God gave you these skills, talent, and ability and put you in a position to take Jesus to your marketplace. They don't need you in full-time ministry. We got enough people doing that. You got to take Jesus to your marketplace. And at the time, I had written a couple devotionals, baseball faith and football faith, with NFL players and MLB players. So I was doing it. I was taking Jesus to my marketplace. Didn't even understand the term or what that meant or what that entailed. And that's where the idea, I was like, I could take it a step further. I was doing talk radio in Philly. Let me do a sports show, Faith on the Field, with these different athletes and these relationships and all these guys. And that's how it was born. April 2017 on ESPN Philly. We've been around 17 different affiliates across the country. We're about to add some new stations in Ohio, but the easiest way for people to follow or listen is the podcast. That's what everybody does now, right? We're on radio, but you go to the podcast, and Faith on the Field show is on there. We had a little bit of a slower summer, took some vacations and took some time off. Had Brian Urlacher, who was really cool. It was a nice conversation with him pretty recently. So we've also now grown into a nonprofit ministry, because there are different ways that we want to impact the community, connect people to Christ. But mental health has become a big part and a big focus for us. and also youth sports. And what I've seen as a coach is there's a lack of leadership in youth sports, and I think that we want to help develop more leaders and give more opportunities to young kids. One of the things that I hate seeing is when a kid can't afford to play, even if it's flag football, whatever it may be. As low as some of those costs are. So we want to be able to give them some scholarships and be able to help them out. So it's been an incredible journey, Amy. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I agree with you there. Sometimes, many times, God calls us to go into darker places where the light is so desperately needed, as opposed to joining maybe a larger or louder chorus of voices. So he definitely had a path for you. And if you ever have an event or a ministry in or near Texas, I would love to be part of it, because that's amazing. Love to work with kiddos. Been doing that for a long time. And obviously we share a passion for both faith and football. So awesome. And you can find Rob on X, or Twix as I call it. Really easy to do it at Rob Motti. And it's, oh my gosh, it's so great to connect with you, to finally see you. We've done so many interviews over the phone or over a radio show. So this has been such a treat for me. Thank you for the extra time, especially when you're just coming off a break, Rob.
Anytime, Amy. Appreciate you and wish you a ton of success and a ton of blessings.
Awesome. Have a great weekend with your family. Rob, good stuff. I mean, he can talk about really anything in the NFL, and so it's hard to just limit it to one or two topics, but his connections with Philly and Saquon, make sure you check out that interview, because there are clips that are up on his Twix account, and then you can find the podcast for his Faith on the Field that he does with his wife. So different side of Rob, which I think is just really neat. And yeah, he has been a great support system for me, but also just brings a wealth of knowledge. And so it's awesome to be able to go a little longer with him. One break left here on this Friday edition of All In with Amy Lawrence here on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone, and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
It's been such a fun show, and I've had so much excitement and energy and joy about a Friday and football. I do get real jazzed up, and it's coming, and pretty soon it'll be games that count. And the more I talk to people about football and welcome guests to the show, the more excited I get. And so I hate to be a downer, but we're going to end with something very different on this Friday. Just a reminder for those of you who enjoy watching the show live, come Monday, because I will be on SiriusXM NFL Radio from what is 10 a to noon Eastern time. We will start this show an hour later. It's the beauty of the internet. I will not make practice of this, but this is an exception. Also already working on a weekend late in September when my family will be celebrating my mom's milestone birthday with a getaway. And so want to make sure that you all are covered. This is, again, a one-off, just the first opportunity that I've had to be on NFL radio in a while, or during training camp. So I want to take advantage of it. And so we'll start the show an hour later. We'll begin the show, instead of starting at 11 a.m. Eastern, which is 10 a.m. my local time in Texas. We'll begin the show straight up at noon Eastern. We'll do 2 hours. It will not affect you if you listen to the podcast or you catch it after the fact. We've seen a lot of new traffic on our YouTube channel this week, and really in the last 24 hours, people asking me questions about where they can find the show and how. And so I'm encouraged. Thank you. Whether you listen live or you get it after the fact, it'll be the same podcast, just shifting the live broadcast come Monday. So again, it will begin at noon Eastern time. So I don't want to be Debbie Downer. We did the Find Your Feels with Jenny Simpson and Damar Hamlin earlier in the show, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention this. Kathy Engelbert, who right now appears to be public enemy number one with sports fans. For years, it was Roger Goodell, then it was Gary Bettman, then it was Rob Manfred. So really every commissioner who's the former commissioner of the PGA Tour? Jay Monahan. Oh my gosh. He was also public enemy number one for a while. So every commissioner gets their own few moments in the spotlight, as it were, and gets to be the target. But I truly believe that Kathy Engelbert is in a very precarious position right now. You've got, and this goes back to the negotiating, which was kind of late last year, so late 2025 into the early stages of 2026 before they could get this new labor deal done. And you had players very prominent and recognizable players from inside the WNBA, like two of its MVPs, and Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, who came out and denounced her leadership. And even as some of that has died down a little bit, not a lot, of course, because of the debates that are raging about the WNBA's transgender policy or lack thereof, she has continued to take the hits. And the latest is Sophie Cunningham, who is the WNBA it girl right now. And it's not about just her comments about women and girls in basketball, but it's also Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue and her self-appointed role as enforcer when it comes to protecting her players, which is pretty much her personality. She's also having a career year when it comes to shooting the rock from beyond the arc, and the Fever are doing well. So all of those reasons combined, her association and her relationship with Caitlyn, all of those reasons combined has put her in a pretty prominent position. And she recently did an article with USA Today in which she called for a change of leadership and that they needed a different leader who could implement a bold vision for the future of the WNBA. So she's the latest, but she's not the only one. Well, we hadn't heard much from Kathy Engelbert, but she was actually at the Fever Dallas game. So it was Indiana and it was Dallas, and that took place in Dallas 24, not quite 24 hours ago, but on Thursday. My mom said the Fever played like poop. That was just her analysis. So their winning streak is over and the Wings get this big victory even as they lose AZ Fun for the rest of the year. But she was attending that game and there were demonstrators outside of American Airlines Center, and really that's kind of been the case now. It's not getting a ton of attention, but there have been demonstrations that are taking place in support of Sophie or the other side of the spectrum. And so here's Kathy Engelbert, and this is really the first time she's spoken to people kind of in the midst of this firestorm. And she says, she's pointing the finger back at fans now, or at people who are trying to stir the pot, as she said. She used the term "so divisiveness." People are trying to use our league. They've never watched it. They couldn't tell you a thing about the WNBA, but they're using us as the political football to pass back and forth to drag the issue of transgender athletes in women's sports, to drag that into the light. Now, I would say, as much as I understand why she is pushing back on that issue, it's definitely gotten louder. The calls and the criticism, the calls for change, the criticism, that's all gotten louder around Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA. It is far from being the only issue that right now is facing this league, in which the league has, in my opinion, dropped that football or dropped the ball and not had strong leadership at the top. So she is kind of honing in on that and pushing back on people who would talk about, their lack of a very staunch and strong transgender policy. So their bylaws, I've mentioned this before, their bylaws do indicate that you have to be a woman to play in the Women's Basketball Association, but they don't define woman as either biological or trans woman. So there's still some gray area there, and they say they're meeting to get to the point where they can define that specifically. Whatever. Okay, so that's what the WNBA is doing. But again, it's far from being the only challenge. And the way that they continue to trail the play, as I've talked about, instead of being proactive and supporting their athletes and getting out in front of potential controversies like Caitlin Clark not being on their 30th anniversary poster, instead they're constantly trailing the play and reacting. And instead of trying to put their best foot forward and focus on basketball and the success of their athletes, instead they're constantly reacting. In some cases, their reaction's fairly ugly because they're getting defensive and they're using emotion to react as opposed to, being professional and setting a different tone. So she goes on to say that right now, we're not going to buy into this divisiveness. Quote, "There's always going to be haters out there and we denounce it. But that's what happens when you have a legitimate sports media and entertainment product." And I will agree with Kathy in that regard. With the extra attention because of Caitlin and some of the other great athletes in the league, there is going to be a cross-section of the fan base or a cross-section of media and sports fans who are critical always. That's what social media is about. I've lived that in my own career, but that doesn't excuse the WNBA for its lack of leadership and for not seeing these challenges and hurdles coming with the extra attention and knowing better than to just hope that people wouldn't notice that Caitlin isn't on their 30th anniversary poster, or having to go back and assess technical fouls, hard fouls, flagrant twos, where some of their superstars are getting clobbered and the officiating isn't up to snuff. So they've got a lot of challenges I don't think they were ready for. And I will not be surprised when there's a new commissioner that is hired for the WNBA that has a greater vision and maybe has more experience with a league that is now in a very white hot spotlight. But she has responded in kind to the haters. All right, that is a week. You guys, week number 3. We've wrapped it up. Terrific conversation with Rob. I learned a lot, always do. So grateful to those of you who have weighed in during the week with our live stream, but also who have followed us on social media and who've sent your questions for Ask Amy. Next Monday, we begin week 4. Are you kidding me? And don't forget the live stream will begin at noon Eastern time if you want to watch live. And some of you are so faithful to do that. Thank you again for all your support and encouragement this week on social and on the show. And my thanks to producer Zach, because he is crushing it. Week 3 in the book, Zach. We'll talk to you on Monday.